Welcome back to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. I'm your host, Alice Stockton-Rossini. A mother of two and former teacher, Ifft had many inspirations for her book entitled The Little Snowflake, most notably her 4-year-old daughter. It is a book that sheds light on what has become a difficult time for a lot of couples trying to conceive. Tell me about your inspiration, Allie.
So I've always loved to write. Ever since I was little, I would always be writing in journals and writing stories at school. And I loved writing more poetic, I guess, stories or books. So I actually wrote this when I was nursing Franny when she was really little. I wrote it on a phone, like on my phone app, on the notes app. And I just was writing it on like a poem for her and figured maybe I'd like print it off and put it in her baby box. So I'd been sitting on it actually for a few years before I even submitted it and thought about trying to get it published.
So what made you decide now's the time?
I was actually in Vegas with my mom and sister, and I got talking about how I had an idea for a book that I wanted to maybe write. And I was kind of talking about my Snowflakes poem, and mom's like, well, if you're really interested in it, why don't you just turn that one into a manuscript and submit it and see where it goes? And then you can continue writing if it's something that, you know, they pick up or you enjoy. So I submitted it, and within a week I was told like, hey, it made it through our review boards and we want to go ahead and publish it.
Oh, well, that'll get you going.
Oh, beyond. It was everything came to life. I was in complete control of the illustrations. I had submitted pictures of like my husband and my daughter and I. I wanted it to very much reflect us, and I wanted to do it as an ode to my daughter to have for her story. I also used it as our starting place of how to kind of start that conversation with her of how our family came to be and how she came to be. When that book came, it just felt like it was all I ever wanted to do was publish a book and be a writer. So it felt like the start of kind of the beginning.
Oh, nice. You found a whole new world.
I love it. It's not work for me. I enjoy it so much. And I'm like, if this could be something I do even once a year, it would just be my creative outlet. And it makes me, I guess, in a sense, just proud of myself for doing something. So
yeah, well, you should be. Take me through the book.
So in the beginning of the book, it talks about a mom and a dad looking outside, and it's storming and it's a snowstorm, and it just says the snowflakes are coming down. They can't hardly see through the storm. And that was my allusion to my husband and I going through fertility trials for so many years. It just felt like year after year, you know, the storm kept coming, the snow kept coming. And then it says that the mom had found a snowflake that she wanted to be hers. And that was kind of a tribute to when we matched with our placing family and we found the embryos we were going to adopt. The mom then, you see her in the next page, has her little belly, and the snowflake is growing in a warm space because we transferred her via IVF. So I carried her and birthed her. And then on the last page, it's kind of the baby. She has a snowflake onesie on and she's talking, you know, isn't life kind of funny to start as a snowflake far away, but end up in the arms of this mom? And it kind of goes through everybody's side, but ends with her kind of putting it all together.
Oh, that is so sweet.
Yeah.
And it resonates. I mean, I feel like there are just so many people in their 30s who are having, issues trying to conceive.
Yeah, it was the majority of my friend group. We all got married within the same, 1 and 2 years. And we all kind of, okay, like we're going to start trying, everyone says as soon as you start, it'll happen. So that's why you're safe for so long. And one of my best friends and I connected over fertility. I mean, that was one of our biggest connections. And we walked that journey. For her, it was 2 years. And for us, it was 3.5. But yeah, we should be in the prime of our lives and it should be happening for all of us. And it wasn't.
Are the fertility doctors able to offer any explanation why this seems to be so widespread?
It's this middle 20 group of adults now. And no, there's not a super scientific linked reason right now. I think a lot of it's being attributed to environment, what we're putting in our bodies, the plastic content, all the mercury. I mean, they're wondering if the processed food, the packaged food, but there's nothing saying like X, Y, and Z causes fertility, so stay away from it.
Boy, that is frustrating.
It is frustrating. My case file read female infertility unexplained.
Oh.
The whole way. So they couldn't even I didn't even have a diagnosis.
Oh man, that's rough. But I wouldn't be surprised to find, a lot of interest in this book and people to share it with.
I am. I have a lot of friend groups and mom groups that I'm able to do. And then I've done a few library read alouds for like library book groups. I would love for it to be somehow affiliated with our adoption agency somehow down the road, whether they read it at galas or whether they send it out with like, congratulations, you've matched. Like, I would love for it to somehow be connected back to our adoption agency. But we'll see how that goes down the road.
Well, this would be a great book to have at the fertility clinic because it gives you hope.
Yes, it does. Yep, that was one of my main targets, was the hope, but also the exposure. Like, we had no idea that embryo adoption was a thing. By the time we found out about this, we had been working with an international adoption program for about 6 months. We were planning to adopt from South Korea. We were 6 months into a program because in our brains, it was only international or domestic adoption. And domestic adoption in the state of Illinois is so hard right now with all the DCFS red tape. So we just went straight to international. And then when we found out about embryo adoption, we kind of just were like, what? We had no idea
Wow.
this was a thing.
Right. So to be clear, this is a children's book and the snowflake is a metaphor for fertility, but
yes,
anybody reading this story will get it. Will get what you're talking about.
Yes. So our adoption agency was actually Snowflake's embryo adoption. They relate to the snowflake babies as had being frozen in time, and that's where the name snowflakes come from. And that's why for us, it's kind of a multi-tier, because if you've been through the Snowflakes adoption program, this book is going to resonate chord by chord. I mean, it's going to down to, they send your baby a snowflake onesie right around the time you have them. So that's what the baby is illustrated in the delivery page of our book.
Oh.
So if you've adopted through this program, it's gonna align, even word for word with the snowflakes verbiage. But we had thought going deeper, just IVF babies, any IVF babies, any embryos you've frozen yourself and use, it's gonna feel the same,
right?
Because you're gonna have known, that you had pulled an embryo out of the freezer, you had transferred it, you've gotten pregnant. But for kids who haven't experienced the adoption side of things, it'll read just like a mom gets pregnant in a snowflake and now she has a baby, or in a snowstorm, now she has a baby.
Yeah. So it's for adults and children, this book.
Yes. Yeah. It's sing-songy. It's more of like a poem. So it very much reads for kids. The animation's very, the style I relate to like the Grinch movie. Like, it's very animated.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You going to keep writing?
I am going to keep writing. My second book just got approved for publication. So we're working on the illustrations for that right now.
Great. You're on a roll now.
Yeah, I love it. I would love to continue doing it.
Okay. You are Allie Ifft, author of The Little Snowflake. Thanks so much for talking to me.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Are employees working from home as engaged as those who go into the office? Does your corporate culture work to make everyone feel part of a team? These are the kinds of questions that are studied by people like Dr. Susan Saurage-Altenloh, so they can make recommendations to improve the workplace. This study is called the Indeed Project. It's also the name of the book we're talking about, with the subtitle Employee Engagement for Organizational Transformation. And you know what I find interesting, Dr. Susan, is the role COVID played in your research. It makes me wonder, is the hybrid workplace here to stay?
Yes, I think that life in the future will be a more balanced combination of in-person and with, of course, what they call computer-mediated communications, or what I call digital communications. Yes, it will survive.
And this project was happening, and COVID just kind of came along, which kind of gave you some really, an interesting diversion, did it not?
Oh yeah, made it great. Actually, it was horrible in many ways, and yet it created so many opportunities. I always tell people I wish I'd invested in Zoom about 8 years ago.
Oh, get in line. Get in line. Break down your findings for me.
So with all of the studies that we have conducted and the instruments that we have created, what we're finding is that when leadership creates a culture of empathy, allows people near and far to have that so critical sense of belongingness. You feel like you're part of the team. You feel like, you're in the tent, as we used to say, terrible old colloquialism, right?
Yes.
Then they tend to stay, to produce, to be involved. They don't just go home at 5. They're like, oh yeah, let's go out and get a beer. Oh, let's go do Habitat for Humanity together. Yeah, I think I'd love to do a weekend, giving back with my teammates who are not so distant anymore, because I feel like I'm part of the team and I don't feel like I'm missing out on what's really happening, quote unquote, in the office. And actually, so I've spent my career helping clients use research to understand. So where are your employees on this spectrum of I don't care, just pay me, to the I'm a company person. I love my company.
Okay.
And this instrument allows you to understand, to see, to measure where your employees are. And what's nice is if you know, then you know what action to take. It's like any research. If you know what your market share is, you then understand some of the tasks before you, and you can refine your objective and then make sure that your tasks and your strategies fit the objective to get you where you want to be. Do you want more people? Do you want more spend? With engagement, do you want them to spend more hours at the office? Do you want them to smile more often? Do you just want them to talk nice about you to others who are not a part of the company? The recruiting pipeline. Do you want them to engage in non-work activities? Do you want them to feel comfortable including their family? Do you want them to want to come to the office one day a week? What is it you want to achieve? And when you use an instrument like the Indeed instrument that allows you to measure that, so now you don't waste your resources, you can apply them very specifically. It's like diagnosis of a medical condition. I can treat you with aspirin and other products to make you feel better. But if I don't figure out what's really the problem behind why you don't feel good right now, I'm not going to be able to help you get better.
Well, what is the instrument? Surveying your employees?
Yeah, there's a discussion in here. The Indeed instrument is like, it's like 9 questions, and it allows, it's a simple instrument to use to analyze. And I believe a major financial institution has applied this already. They are unnamed, with their employees across the board. And it was very helpful for them. It was built on theory, but nobody cares about theory when you get down to the bottom line at your company. You just want to know what's the deal and what do I do?
Right.
And this short survey instrument, once administered, analyzed, actually gives you something that an organization can trust and rely on and determine. So what is it we need to do to make sure we have a more engaging work environment so that employees feel like they're part of the family?
So I would imagine companies are clamoring for this.
Yes, and we're getting a lot of interest in it because the hybrid nature of work today has driven away that sense of belongingness and teamness, if I can use a non-existent word, that is so critical in keeping people working together. Because, as a team, we work together better. If number 2 knows what number 1's doing, then number 2 can prepare for some of the negative as well as positive outcomes that his boss is about to experience based on what they're doing, and get other people involved so you can kind of get ready and get prepared. So yeah, it's a pretty neat concept, and it's been proven out. Companies are real interested in this because hybrid, they're still kind of, I hate to say they don't know, but they're kind of battling through it. They're still working on that, on getting their hybrid team members to be as engaged. It's really engaged with the company and the brand.
That was my next question. Is it possible to work from home and be engaged?
It is.
And can you be engaged and be, working 3 states away?
You can. What's nice is when you're engaging with people who are working on campus, on property, in meetings. So when you have a virtual meeting, it shouldn't be with just the outsiders, because that's how they feel as outsiders. Let's include everybody so that we kind of know, we talk and we realize, hey, either we're coming in and sitting at a desk and doing the work, or we're coming into our home office, sitting at a desk and doing our work.
Okay.
We're very similar. We realize now we're very similar, but we don't get, to smell the coffee and get a breakfast pastry with our buddy in the cubicle next to us anymore. It doesn't work quite the same way. So leaders and organizations actually need to change their strategy of outreach and change their communications, because that Monday morning meeting in the conference room cuts out the hybrid folks. But if you have another kind of meeting that includes them so they're on equal footing and communicate clearly, then all is well. And then they feel like they've been heard.
And your project group is an example of that.
Yes, 2 of the 4 of us work for an all online organization that has a headquarters in Minneapolis.
Oh, geez.
And those folks there have great team cohesiveness.
Okay.
But we don't feel excluded because they have extraordinary outreach. They work to make sure that everybody, it's not like, are you a virtual person or are you an office person? None of that.
Okay.
That doesn't happen. Yeah. And that's nice.
And that's what you help people to do through the Indeed project.
It's fun.
All right.
Okay.
Dr. Susan Saurage-Altenloh, one of the authors of the Indeed Project, Employee Engagement for Organizational Transformation. Thank you so much.
Hey, I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Eloise Lewis will tell you success is all about education. She has a doctorate in health administration, and she's called Hawaii home for the last 3 decades. She details her journey in her book, Build Resilience, a Memoir. Welcome, Eloise.
First of all, let me just say thank you very much for having me and for interviewing me for my book today. I wanted to let you know how gracious I am about this whole thing, and thank God for the opportunity of still being able to be here and be independent. But I came here with a bachelor's degree in education and a master's degree in mental health, and so I was able to get employment right away. And after the first about 3 years of working, I had an incident on the job where I was told my degree wasn't credentialable. That was another way of saying, you're not like us, so you got to go. Because there was I had already worked for them almost 3 years. And so to prevent that from ever happening again, I went on for a second master's degree.
Good for you.
Yeah, so finished that, and I was able to get great employment because it's one of those states where there's lots of help needed. And so I got another master's degree in counseling, supplement the first one.
Were you writing along the way, taking notes along the way? I mean, where did this book come from?
Well, that's a very good question. When I was about 14, 15 years old or so, I saw a movie. It was based off of a woman's life. Her name was Miss Jane Pittman, and it talked about the atrocities of the 60s, the racial indiscrepancies and what have you. And this woman, she was 84, 85 years old. At the very end of the movie, she did something that what Rosa Parks did in her time was refuse to get off the bus. This woman refused to not drink from a water fountain that was labeled whites only. And the name of the movie was called The Autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman. That movie really struck a chord with me. And I had made it my decision in my mind that I was going to, at one point in time, write an autobiography. That was where it started. And by the time I was about 23, I had written like 20 pages of what would you call an autobiography.
Oh.
So with more experience, more time, my book has arrived as a result of that in the form of a memoir with the focus of education mostly, but it's an indie genre in the sense that it does focus on other subjects, with education being kind of the main focus.
When did you know it was time to put it out there?
Oh, it was actually the very last job that I worked as a professor. And this was around 2022, 23, somewhere around. It's after the pandemic. And I had to be about 65 years old. Plus, I had lots of journals and I had some other notes. And so I pulled all of that together with photos and a little bit from the very first autobiography that I wrote with respect to my experience of going to school at Waubonsee College, where I met my favorite teacher who taught me everything I know about my favorite subject, right? And so I pulled it all together and I was able to publish it through Page from some seed money from a settlement that I received.
You talk about being raised in Chicago, having 5 siblings, domestic violence.
Yes.
African-American family, life values. What are the standout moments in your book, the most important things that you needed to communicate?
Right. So I would start with family. Family is very, very important at the very beginning to have that support. And at the very beginning, we did have a lot of support, my siblings and I. And it came in handy because our father, unfortunately, was very abusive physically. And he started that when I was about 4 or 5 years old. And 6 children later, my mom left. She moved in with my grandma, and my grandmother was extremely supportive and very, very nurturing. And we stayed there and had to be about a year or so. And then one of my aunts, we stayed with her for another year or so. I actually attended 7 different elementary schools. So we moved a lot until we settled. And it was actually my maternal grandmother who assisted my mom in finding stable housing on the far south side of Chicago.
Okay, now a major turning point in your life was when your first grade teacher sent a note home to your mom.
Yeah, my mom was upset behind the note, showed it to my grandma, and both of them had a discussion that day about this note and how outrageous it was. It was basically saying that they were concerned I couldn't read when my mother and grandmother knew that I could read because I read the Reader's Digest and other books. And so they wanted to put me in a different classroom setting. And so my mother was like, absolutely not. Went up and met with them and said, we're gonna need to have her tested in order to show whatever it is that you're trying to say about her reading skill. So fast forward, took the test, passed the test, flying colors, no problem. And then they put me in the grade I was supposed to be in after all that rigmarole. And I went from that point all the way through school and going to different schools every single year into high school, almost functionally illiterate only because we moved so much. And I would lose everything that I had learned from the previous year. Do you understand what I'm saying? Every time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I got into Waubonsee College to take anatomy and physiology that I realized how bad it was. But it was the teacher, Sally Anderson, who said, don't worry, you'll get it. Just hang in there with me. And she taught it to me in a way that I was able to learn it, which was repetition after repetition and home assignments. And I flourished in the hardest class you can take, anatomy and physiology in A&P lab. And I was able to use my PhD to get work as a professor and in my career with that particular incident. And everything that I did to protect myself in terms of employment and discrimination, it all sprung from having knowledge about civil rights, knowledge about housing, knowledge about everything's relationships. And so I was able to really not give up, not do anything crazy to myself because of the failures, and which I've had many because I'm a flawed individual, because I had the knowledge. And you have the knowledge because you hang in there no matter how hard the subjects are or the classes are or the milieu is. And so for me, I don't believe, if I had not believed in my education from that first grade experience, right, that I would have ended up being able to have a decent Social Security and live in Hawaii and be stable and have a roof over my head and not be homeless if I wasn't educated. And by the way, I do also talk about autism. I learned about autism, and that's how I was able to school my therapists, my psychiatrists and psychologists about a misdiagnosis of bipolar for me. That first grade experience, the hallmark that came from that was that I wasn't speaking. Now, at home, I was a tyrant. I mean, I was a little queen bee running around, bossing everybody around. But at school, it was too much for me. So I went my entire life until I was about maybe 48 years old on the autism spectrum. You understand? And and it was the education that informed me of my autism. So my grandmother and mother are geniuses, in my opinion. They just didn't take it, and they didn't believe this for one bit because they knew me. And that's what that was the whole point, is that parents and supporters advocate for kids in education because it's extremely important.
You're so lucky to have them in your life. The family, as you were saying earlier, it's just so important to have that support.
That's why I started with that statement. And I'm sitting here, you're making me want to tear up by that. I appreciate that feedback, Alice. Thank you very much. I was lucky.
Well, you've had an extraordinary life. And I mean, there's so many ways and places to share your message.
I'm connected to the University of Hawaii in that I'm still an Ohana member. So I still I still get emails and I still can send emails. But I'm not working in the educational system. I worked as a clinical therapist, counselor, and a professor of anatomy and physiology. I know that eventually I'm going to have to get out there and what have you. And I guess I will at some point. Especially with your feedback, because you have no idea. It really sent a surge through me to hear you say you're lucky, because that's how I've been feeling. I say blessed, the same thing. But these kids, they're not knowing what they want to major in because they don't know if their jobs are going to be taken by AI. Go to school anyway. You're still going to need to be educated to be able to make informed choices and to be able to navigate,
I hear you. What a pleasure to meet you, Eloise.
Alice, the pleasure's all mine.
Eloise Lewis, author of Build Resilience, a memoir. Thank you so much.
Mahalo. Have a wonderful day.
A love story based on the real-life friendship and journals of a young man Scott Michaels has known his entire life. Memoirs from the Gold Coast is the story of Byron Kensington, who with Scott's help and guidance overcame his struggles with his sexual identity and found the love of his life. Now, Scott, you've written 5 books, including one 30 years ago about how you got fired from a law firm after you were outed for dating a partner who was the love of your life. Years later, you meet Byron, and he and his partner ask you to write their story to give hope to others in a similar situation. So tell me about Byron.
He and I, we came from a privileged background. My father had a large construction company, and my dad helped build Orange County, and Byron Kensington's dad did as well. I took pity on Byron. He is about 20 years younger than me.
Okay.
So when I was approaching 30, he was in his teens. Our parents knew each other. Our dads were best friends. And I could tell that he was probably gay, though it's not obvious to most, but if you are gay, you probably recognize it. And I could see that he was struggling, and so we became friends, platonically, of course, lifetime friends. And I've guided him to understand the gay world and our history and how it's affecting him, and that this will one day, hopefully will one day change. I'm a pioneer of the gay movement. I came out shortly after the Stonewall riots. And so I helped him along the way to finally, in the 90s, this is a period piece, and it starts in 1996. The first book, Memoirs from the Gold Coast, goes from 96 to 98. And the world was starting to change. There's a lot of gay history in the book because I'm targeting young people like Byron, as well as older, I would say gays, but romance, gay or straight, they would understand this book and be drawn to it. It's written so tenderly, and most of it, although it's fiction, the majority of it is real life. And by 1996, he meets his life partner. And so I go through their struggles, but it's a pleasant story. It's not all, struggle and whatnot. They're two unique individuals, Byron Kensington and Matteo Maggiano, an Italian immigrant whose parents own a wine and olive oil worldwide distribution. They have a large estate of vineyard and olive groves in Tuscany in the Chianti region. His dad came to a point in his life where he's ready to retire, and Matteo was his oldest son, and especially in European men, the business goes to the oldest son. And Matteo comes to America. There's a thing called the Gold Coast, Corona del Mar. It goes all the way to San Clemente, and it was then and still is to this day one of the richest counties and the richest strips of land in all of America. And his family moved to a place called Crystal Cove, which is right next door to Laguna Beach. Byron, his parents came from Laguna Niguel, which is part of the Gold Coast, and choking view. Their house is way at the top of Laguna Niguel, and he enjoyed surfing and played football at Laguna Beach High School.
And so everyone assumed he was heterosexual. So he was really lucky to meet you when he did.
Yes, and so young people often go through identity crisis and shame and self-guilt and whatnot, and it shouldn't be. God made us in His own image, and He didn't make any mistakes. Another part of this book is in one particular chapter where Byron is arguing with Matteo's dad. Their parents find out that this couple is not just great friends, but they're in a relationship. And a lot of pressure was put on him. Matteo's dad disinherited him, at least for a while, because they were so upset about it. But it ends with the parents do finally accept this and realize that this is true and genuine love. It's mostly the mothers who sympathize and change the husbands' minds. And now even the husbands.
I'm not surprised by that at all, that the mothers would be more open and accepting, And you say this is a lasting love that they find.
Yes. And by the way, Mateo's dad completely does a 180 on his feelings. He reinstates Mateo and wants to send him to Italy to take care of business and so on. They had been relying on a caregiver back there, thinking they were going to be able to run the business from the States. That didn't work, so they need to send Mateo there. And he convinces his dad that it's so hard living on a 300-hectare olive grove and vineyard.
Oh, that sounds lonely and isolated.
Yes, and so he wants to bring Byron with him.
Okay, so we have to read the book to find out what happens there. So, Scott, how are you promoting your book? Any ideas?
I will be doing book tours first in Sacramento, readings, signings, and then I think I'd like to do Zoom meetings with various book clubs around the country, and I'm going to be sending sell sheets along with a hardcover and a paperback that I autograph to major places like gay community centers around the country, places like Stillwell, gay churches, famous gay bookstores like Castro District. I plan to do a book signing in the Castro for only one of their bookstores that's the main hub of all the others.
Okay.
And so, yes, I do have a plan.
You're just getting started, Scott.
Yeah. Oh, I love to write.
That's exciting.
And you're going to find out that I'm a very, very cinematic, creative writer, and I engage all the senses every chance I get, so you feel that you're there. It's the reason that Byron and Mateo approached me. Byron had been journaling their relationship, never planning to write a book, but eventually after their wedding, they contacted me to say, hey, we like your writing. Would love for you to write this book. That was about 2 years ago. Took me a year to write it and about a year to edit it.
No higher compliment than that, Scott, honestly.
Thank you so much.
All right. You are Scott Michaels, author of Memoirs from the Gold Coast. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you.
Writing, drawing, and producing greeting cards was one of Jim Boland's first creative ventures before he finally found the time to expand his creative energies and write The Black Egg Children, about a teenage girl caught between childhood and destiny after discovering she's inherited the power to guide Earth's balance using everyday kitchen tools. So from greeting cards to published author, what was going on in between, Jim?
Just working a lot in my life, helping people. I was an employment specialist for many years, writing thousands and thousands of resumes for clients and cover letters and connecting people to employers. But technical writing and creative writing are very different. So they're not, but I always thought creative writing was more my speed because I could write freely and be able to write what I wanted to, be very creative.
Yeah. When did you finally get the chance to do some creative writing?
During the pandemic. I was at home and I was working from home, but I also had plenty of time to be writing, and so this was a perfect time for me to start my story. When I started my story, I thought it was going to be more of a picture book, because I've written some picture books but have not gotten them published as of yet. And as I was writing, I realized that this was not going to be a picture book, and so I just kept on writing to see where the story would take me. And as I was doing that, I realized that my characters age from young children to young adults, and the story shifted from science fiction into fantasy, which I struggled with in the beginning because I really wanted the story to be more science fiction than fantasy.
Are you a sci-fi guy?
Not really. I'm not really a science fiction person, but as I was writing the story, I realized it had to have elements of sci-fi in it, otherwise it wasn't going to make sense. So, for example, there's a young girl named Rachel in the story that flies, and she also goes in between mason jars. So the family has mason jars on their shelf in their basement, and that's how she's able to control the seasons. So there's 4 seasons, as we know: spring, summer, fall, and winter. And she is one of the case managers of the jars, and so she's able to go into the jars themselves and help change the seasons for Earth. And she's the only one that she and her grandmother are the only ones that know about her magical powers, and so she has to keep it a secret from her friends in school. And it becomes increasingly, and her best friend, and it becomes increasingly difficult as she's doing that all along, because she's trying to do this. She's struggling with her important job of maintaining the Earth, but at the same time, she's trying to be a normal teenager.
Okay. And then according to your synopsis, her world begins to unravel when her powers are misused. What happens?
She finds out that her best friend and her a close member of her family are not who they say they are. And so she is wounded but not broken. Rachel finds strength in an unlikely fellowship of magical allies, and she discovers a painful truth. Adults aren't always right, especially those who manipulate in others to maintain control. So we talk about, in the story, I talk about narcissism and how it can affect young girls, or really children of any age, with how to deal with it and how to become aware of it.
So she learns a valuable lesson by finding out that these people are not who she thought they were.
Right. And so she has inherited the sacred legacy passed down for over 2,000 years, the power to guide the Earth's balance using everyday kitchen tools and an old basement stove, and her grandmother's mason jars, each containing the living spirit of the 4 seasons. So while she's learning and understanding this elemental magic and controlling the weather and directing the rhythms of life, Rachel remains a teenager caught between childhood and destiny. When they get into the first page, there's rising action. They're right in the middle of a scene. A big tornado is hitting their town, hitting their house, and she and her grandmother are dealing with the tornado and how it's going to affect the Earth. Why that's so important is because in the basement they have a stove, and they have the jars of the 4 seasons, which controls the energy of the Earth. And so if that stove is damaged, or that stove doesn't light up, then there will be earthquakes in other cities, and there will be flooding in India, and everything is controlled by the stove in their basement. And so in the basement they have dishes and pots and pans from over 2,000 years ago, from the Egyptians to different dynasties in China, and because the fire has always created that energy source for Earth to keep spinning and for the weather to work. And people think it's science, and it really isn't. It's coming from their stove in their basement, and they always have to make sure to keep that stove burning and working. If they don't, then there's going to be problems. And so that also connects to their 4 mason jars, and the mason jars is where Rachel and her grandmother are able to fly in between the jars, and inside the jars are different entities for spring, summer, fall, and winter. And as the world becomes warmer and warmer, these entities in the jars want to take more power, because they realize that this is causing chaos within the jars of the global warming crisis. And so in these mason jars, there are cities, there are oceans, there are mountain ranges, and a lot of these mason jars also have their own entities in these jars. And some of the entities turn out to be good, and some of them turn out to be evil. So Rachel finds out while she's in the mason jars who's her friend and who isn't. And there are battles going on in the mason jars. There's ocean battles, there's conflict throughout the story. And then she realizes with her courage and newfound clarity, Rachel reclaims her voice, her future, and her magic.
Okay.
As the world teeters on the edge of collapse.
Yeah, so you leave us, the world, Rachel's getting it together, but the world is about to collapse. Like, is there another book coming?
Yeah, there should be. Actually, I am writing one now. It will be out in probably a year to a year and a half.
All right. Explain the title, The Black Egg Children.
So Rachel was born from an egg. Rachel was born from a black egg. So she always thought that she was human. And then she finds out in the story that she's really not human. She was actually born from a black egg. And there's a story about how she fits and it belongs to the black egg children than she ever did with her family living in Wisconsin. So she realizes that she always felt different and she didn't know why. And then she found out came from the black egg children.
How are you drawing attention to this book?
Well, I am branding myself. So I am the brand for this story. So I've contacted local newspapers and local magazines and coordinated book signings and placing the book signings in the newspapers and regional magazines. So for example, I have an article coming out with the Portland News in about a week. The reason why I chose the Portland, Oregon News is because Portland has about 1 million people living in that city. And if I can have a well-written article with a picture of my book and where the book reading is going to be at Barnes & Noble, there's a possibility of up to 1 million people looking at that article. And then if they read it and they can go to that Barnes & Noble where the book signing will be. So that's kind of like what I've been doing. I have a magazine that's coming out in a couple of weeks, a regional magazine where I'm telling about my story and how it helps young people. So I am branding my story, and that's how to do it. I take the local newspapers and the regional magazines, and I coordinate that with the bookstores and say, like, I'm going to be doing this book reading, and I put it in the paper so it builds excitement. It's not just an article that people are going to read. They can actually meet the author. They can actually get their book signed by me when they go to these bookstores. And so that's what I've been doing. And so far it's working. So I'm going to keep doing it. And I also send a press release as well from the publisher.
Jim, that's a great idea. Now you said that the purpose of this book is you want to help people. How will this book help people?
It's telling young readers on how to stand up against bullies, how to change eliminations, how to discover the magic within themselves. It becomes a sense of empowerment. Life is strength. It's not about fitting expectations, about defining your own path. So it's a way to stand up against people and say, I can do this. I do have a voice and I'm going to use it. I'm not going to shy away or be scared.
Nice. Before I let you go, any advice for our would-be authors out there?
When people write, a lot of times people feel like that they have to put all their commas in and all their semicolons in. I would just tell people just to write. Just keep writing, and then you can go back later and fix the sentences. But if one just keeps like, oh, I want to make sure this is not a run-on sentence, you're not gonna get done with the story. You just want to just write the story and then go back and fix it, because that's the way it is.
Good advice, Jim Boland, author of The Black Egg Children. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton-Rossini. We hope to see you back here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.